in mind, I'd just like to welcome Alex. Hi, Alex. I would say welcome you down to the front to be interviewed, to the stage, but of course we don't have a stage, but onto the screen. Hello, what's your name? What course are you studying?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm currently doing my master's in creative writing at UEA, in specifically poetry. I did an undergrad course last couple of years in creative writing as well.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. What kind of poetry do you write?
I don't know yet is the answer to that. I'm kind of working it out as I go along, having fun at the moment with it.
That's so cool. Amazing. I'm glad that's going really well. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions. How long have you been a Christian for?
I've been a Christian for just over 2 years now. Quite recently.
Amazing. Oh, cool. So what do you think were your misunderstandings about Jesus before you became a Christian, do you think?
It was quite difficult. My family are Christian, so I grew up going to church, but I went through quite a lot in my early teens and really struggled with the idea of God as someone who was looking out for me or who loved me. I was really angry at him and kind of was like, there's no way that someone like that could let all these terrible things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. And what do you think made you change your mind?
It was quite a gradual process for me. So I spent quite a lot of years just doing my own thing, quite happily, just going down quite a dark path of doing what I want, kind of being in control of my own life, or kind of I thought I was in control of my own life. And then I struggled quite a lot with my mental health over those years and kind of turned very inwards on myself. And it was actually when I came to university, I tried to kill myself in my second year of uni, which is quite dark. Sorry, everyone. I really felt alone. I didn't think that there was anyone out there looking out for me. So I decided that was going to be it for me. And then while I was in the hospital that night, I heard God speak to me, and he was talking to me and he said, I'm not done with you yet. Kind of came back around the next kind of morning, I guess, and was a bit like, oh, so that was weird. That was a thing that happened, and tried to ignore it for a little while because I was like, I'm sure that was just some weird thing that happens to you when that happens. But then I kind of got quite curious and ended up going along to a church service one day, and kept going back every single week since, really.
Wow, that's amazing. So do you think, was that when you became a Christian after going along to and hearing more about the gospel, do you think, off the back of going on to church? Or I don't know.
I think it took me about a year of going along to church before I was kind of fully ready to kind of admit that I really needed God. I think the small part of me still wanted to kind of hold on to some semblance of control, to kind of claim that I wasn't broken, and having to admit that I really needed God was really difficult for me, but it was the best thing I've ever done. So I'm in a weird way glad it all happened.
Yeah, wow, amazing. So just kind of off the back of that, what difference does the resurrection hope make in your life, would you say?
I mean, there's hope now. I think for a long time I didn't think I had any hope in my life. I think in a worldly sense, there's kind of you live and then you die, but kind of when we kind of have God in our lives, we know that's not the truth, and we know that there is something beyond that. We have this amazing Father who's looking out for us and is really on our side and trying to make good things happen in our lives. And it's just been, I know, even though I still struggle with my mental health, there's kind of a lasting hope there. There's a real kind of sense of being protected, that there's someone there looking out for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Alex. It's really powerful and really hopeful as well. And we're just gonna sort of think about more of those ideas again with in our next section now. Just gonna move on to Ellie and Rosie, who are going to be leading us in a bit of an interview talk session. So yeah, thanks Alex, and welcome Ellie and Rosie.
Hi, so thank you for coming everyone, and thank you for coming too, Rosie. So who are you and what is your job for those who don't know you already?
Hey, my name is Rosie. My job is to encourage Christian students to share their faith at university, mostly because I think Christianity is one of the world's most misunderstood religions.
Yeah, thanks. So how's working with students show you how God is at work? How has this encouraged you?
This is such a good question. I love working with students because they're so open and they're so willing to listen. And I find particularly in this generation, I'm more of a millennial than I am Gen Z. And I find particularly with Gen Zers, they're just so open to new ideas, and I just really rate that. They're so open to thinking about new things and just really broadening that. And I think that's brilliant. And I think we can all learn from that hugely, from what you guys are like and what you experience. But yeah, I really, really love that. And deep conversations and deep thinkers. Yeah.
Oh, cool, thanks. So on the topic of loneliness, kind of suffering, just general hard times, do you have a favourite Bible verse that you go back to?
This is such a good one. It shouldn't be such a hard one, especially because I'm giving the talk on this. But I think the one which I go back to the most is it's definitely Colossians 1. I think it's verse 17 where it says, "In him he holds all things together," and that is amazing because it's not within my control to have to hold things together. It's not something which is totally chaotic either. It's a God who knows me, loves me, who's brilliantly, deeply personal, and is also incredibly in control. And I love the whole of Colossians 1. There's a really beautiful kind of almost form of poetry there, but I love that, and that I've definitely clung to a lot of times.
Yeah, that is so true. Thanks. So yeah, I guess now I'll just say over to you for the talk, Rosie.
Great, thanks Ellie, and thanks so much Alex for sharing her story as well. I think she's fleshed out a lot more what the points which I'm hopefully going to make are now. I wonder if this phrase sounds familiar to you, this kind of phrase of "we're in the same boat." Maybe I'm the only one, but I feel like I heard that all the time during lockdown. It seemed to be in nearly every personal conversation or even on the news. They would say, "Oh, it's all awful," but we're all in the same boat. And I get what they mean. What they mean is we're living through this experience, which is unique, of living through a pandemic. And there's a level of solidarity that comes with that. But I heard an amended analogy a few weeks later, which says that we're not in the same boat at all. We're all in different boats, we're just in the same storm. And if we're living through the same storm, some boats are going to be steadier than others. Some of us are facing 30-foot waves in a life raft, and some are on ocean liners. Regardless of which boat you're in, the real question is, where is God? Where is God when there's more storms than our newsfeed can keep up with? What's the difference that Christianity makes when I'm in a boat on my own? Where is he when the real world hits? I'm going to give you the short answer. I'll warn you, it won't make any sense without context, but that's why the whole talk is here for. But the short answer is that God gives himself. And you might well be thinking, yes, that is right. That is an insufficient answer. And it's also quite unlikely to be the answer that you expect. Mostly because there's a stereotype in popular culture that Christians are people who put on this fake smile and carry on. The Christian attitude to suffering is, keep calm and carry on until we get to heaven. And there are some Christians who live like that. I'm not here to begrudge Ned Flanders for his diddly-doo-dah attitude, but that's not how the Bible addresses suffering. For a start, it doesn't hold back at all in giving a graphic and raw account of what this world is like. I want you to imagine this scenario. So imagine you hear this story of someone who had his entire life savings gone with no hope of getting it back. He's lost his job, his livelihood, his house collapses with no insurance, and every single piece of context has been destroyed. Soon after, he then receives news that every member of his immediate family were having a party, were caught in the middle of a tornado, and the house collapses around them. No survivors, his children, his grandchildren, his parents, all in one freak accident. It's horrendous. It's a tragedy that's impossible to wrap your head around. This is the crudest summary of just one chapter of a book of the Bible, which is suspected to be the oldest, which is the book of Job. It's currently undated. And we know that the Bible, in its opening line in Genesis, talks about this world being good. And then it talks about how this world goes tremendously wrong. And Job is a picture of that, of the brutalness of what humanity is like. And then you see this play out, the brutalness of what human beings can do to each other. And it just doesn't hold back. It shows life in all its rawness, messiness, and pain. It doesn't minimize suffering at all. But what about loneliness specifically? Well, first of all, let's talk about what our culture says about loneliness before we kind of look at the general viewpoint. A quick Google search will tell you that the opposite of loneliness is popularity, which is obviously nonsense. You can see people shaking their heads. Like, I think Western culture has done a properly good job of debunking this myth that popularity is the opposite of loneliness. It's now the norm for celebrities to open up about how lonely it is being the envy of everyone. I don't even need to scroll through the top 10. Justin Bieber's song Lonely is right up there. If you've not heard of it, the premise of the song is how Justin was put on a pedestal at an early age. And like what that does to a child when people want your talent but don't really care about you as a person. Or Ed Sheeran's song Eraser, where he's like, I used to think that nothing could be better than touring the world with my songs. I chased the picture perfect life. I think they painted it wrong. I think that money is the root of all evil and fame is hell. Not to mention, popularity on social media doesn't lead us to deeper connection. Like, our culture gives us all the right questions, but I don't think it really leaves us with many answers. It leaves us with really great questions like, what does it mean to build genuine connection? What does good community look like in an individualistic culture? How can someone love me if I don't love me? What does it mean to have healthy relationships with the people around me? So we try to quit social media or block people out who we think are toxic. We try to be more vulnerable and then wonder if we're oversharing. We wonder what it means to be truly ourselves when we're a different person around our family, and then with our friends, and then online, to who we are when no one else is around. None of these solutions just seem to solve the way that we ache. So where does that leave us? Where is God in the meantime? How could God create a world filled with pain and questions? Surely he's just messing with us. I have a favorite author. She's called Dorothy Sayers. She was born in the 1800s. She graduated from Oxford at a time when women couldn't obtain university degrees. And when asked questions similar to that, is God just toying with his creation? She responded with, for whatever reason, God chose to make man as he is, limited and suffering and subject to sorrows and death. He had the honesty and the courage to take his own medicine. Whatever game he was playing with his creation, he kept to his own rules and played fair. How does Christianity respond to the problem? God gives himself as a human being to live and die on the cross. We have a very unique belief in Christianity. We believe the God we believe in flung stars into space and then learnt to carve wood with his bare hands and ended up with splinters in the backs of them when he died on the cross. He had the world at his feet and then came as a baby to be born in the middle of cowpats in a stable. He lived his early life as a nomad in the midst of an ironclad empire. He knew grief. He watched friends die From the day Jesus was born to the day he died, he had people who wanted to kill him. He was given a sham trial before then enduring the most horrific form of death penalty the world had to offer. When you cry out to the Christian God and say, it hurts, he can say, I know. I know. Not in this kind of, I know everything omniscient way, but deeper than that. He knows what it is to be like us. And that's the God which I pray to as well. Like, not simply a God who's lording everything. We believe in a God who is totally other than us, but also knows exactly what it's like to be us. The real question remains in that, how does God choosing to suffer change anything other than just empathy? How does it make it any better? How does it lead to hope? These are crucial, crucial questions. And I'm going to take a sip of my tea for a moment. Don't want to let it go cold. But how does Jesus' death offer hope? Crucial question. If you've zoned out at this point, you maybe have a couple of tabs open, this is the point to really zero in and listen. Because everything about the Christian hope lies with what Jesus accomplished at the cross. The message is this: we've all at some point in our lives, some of us at every point in our lives, said, God, I want your stuff. I want everything you have to offer. I want everything this world has to offer. I want all the relationships, all the things, but I really don't want you. I want it all, I want it now, I want life to the full, but without the God who made it. And we see this so acutely at the cross, where human beings like us allowed a holy man to die for a completely made up crime. We've all turned a blind eye. And walking the way of selfishness, which human beings do, means cutting ourselves off from the Creator. We've all been guilty of it. And the consequence of that is death. If God is the source of life itself, then what could possibly be the alternative? And it's this message that we've dug this hole so deep that we cannot rescue ourselves from our deepest issues. And humanity, let's face it, has some real issues. God didn't just come down to tell us what to do. He's like, be less greedy, don't lust, don't be lazy or passive. He didn't come with that message. He came to completely remake us, to make our hearts rid of all the things which have made us rebel against his Creator, and we call it sin. And Jesus didn't come to persuade us to live differently or die because he felt sorry for us, to sympathize with us. He died to pay a really extortionate price to reclaim us from the darkest parts of ourselves. When he was suffering, it wasn't just an earthly pain. He was taking on the weight of sin and shame and all the things that separate us from God. And he felt the weight of that separation so that we could be made free and brought into relationship with the very God we chose to reject. It's a wild assertion from the Christians that at the cross we're forgiven and the promise of being made new, not because we're good people, but because we're far from good people, because only God is good and perfect. The wildest assertion of all of that, even if that's a wild assertion, it's the resurrection at the end of it, the resurrection hope. And maybe that is a step too far, but think about it. If Jesus was simply a good man harmed by malicious people, how did it split history in half? Like, how do we have AD and BC? There are plenty of decent people who die. But why has this message endured? Why does his death seem to lead his followers from despair to outrageous hope? Not only his followers, but his worst enemy. Like Saul, who was his worst enemy, who was killing Christians at the time, became one of the most prolific writers of the New Testament. And two of Jesus' half-brothers, James and John, also became his followers and wrote 2 books of the New Testament. Like, what do you have to do to convince your younger brothers and your worst enemy that you're the Son of God after you've died? Part of me, honestly, is like, just read it for yourselves to get an answer. Because I can tell you what I conclude that the answer is, but I really want you to find this out for yourself. And if you've never read any part of the New Testament, do read about the life of Jesus. If you do something during lockdown, do that. Even if you think you know what you're going to read, Jesus constantly takes our expectations and rearranges them. That's why Christians keep on coming back to the Bible and rereading it, because we need rearranging and because we need our expectations completely rearranged. All of this means for the Christian that hope is a light in one hand and light at the end of the tunnel and darkness all around us. It's a light in hand because we have a God who sympathizes with us, who's near us and lives with us. It's also a light at the end of the tunnel because we believe that one day darkness will be completely extinguished. But for now, darkness is all around us and it is crushing. And some of you know that without me needing to tell you that. A good Christian knows what it is to walk by the light but live in the dark. I live in this world just as much as everyone else does. I don't know why any of this is happening, and I don't pretend to. But I do know who I'm following, and I do know an incredible truth. I'm going to quickly pray now. Just very briefly. This might be a very foreign concept to you, and you might want to switch off your screen or do whatever you want to do. But I'd love to pray for you. Lord God, thank you so much for every person here, that you know them, that you love them exactly as they are, that you see who they truly are now and who they could be. And I lift up those of you who know and realize your closeness with them and realize their rejection of you. And we just ask for this time to be able to find out more of who you are and for this chance to turn to you. And pray for those who are curious about you, for that you would open their eyes, that they would see more of you, Jesus, and who you came to be. Not who other people tell you that you are, but who you say that you are. We pray for this hope and pray for those who feel hopeless, that they would know this light and life like never before. And we ask this in your name. Amen.